For this video, I've skipped slightly ahead in the text. I'm going to take a look at a problem that's a little bit more complicated. I'm going to assume that if you're watching this video, number one, you've got A2 down. You're familiar with instantiation and generalization, both universal and existential, of course. I'm also going to assume that you've taken a look at some pretty straightforward basic proofs early in A3. This isn't too complicated. But again, I'm skipping a bit ahead in the text. And before you tackle a problem like this, you should put in a little bit of practice here. So if you're still overwhelmed with all these quantifiers and this new syntax, again, I've been trying to emphasize this in many of the videos here. Start, if it helps, just by thinking of it as a Chapter 7 problem. And again, I know easier said than done. But if you strip away the Chapter 8 stuff, what do we want? If C, then not A. There's the C, there's the A. The main operator in premise 1 is the horseshoe. The main operator in premise 2 is the horseshoe. There are a bunch of quantifiers in there. We can't apply instantiation to any of these quantifiers because these are both horseshoe statements. If C, then not A. There's the C, there's the A. Given that we're dealing with two horseshoes, Chapter 7 style, you can maybe see the hypothetical syllogism that's coming. The B's will drop out, and we'll link together the A and the C respectively. Now, we're not quite given a perfect hypothetical syllogism. We are given two horseshoe statements, but the antecedent of one isn't quite the consequent of the other. A couple of obvious differences here. That's universal, that's existential. There's a tilde out front, there's no tilde. There's not a tilde to the right. There is a tilde to the right. So it's close to being a perfect match for that HS there, but it's not quite. So how can we get these aligned together? We've got to apply a change of quantifier. We need to either change this universal quantifier to existential, so it matches there, or let's change this existential to universal, so it matches there. And it doesn't really matter here. Apply a change of quantifier there, apply a change of quantifier there. It doesn't matter, your choice. I'm going to go with change of quantifier in 1. 1 CQ. And I'm not going to touch the antecedent here. I can leave that for now. For any X in the universe, X is an A. I'm not touching the main operator. I'm just going to change the quantifier here. And this is the source of some confusion about change of quantifier. Change of quantifier is really a rule of replacement, kind of like 7.3, 7.4. So it need not be the main operator, the quantifier that is. It need not be the main operator in order to change it. It could be the main operator, but it need not. I can, again, for that matter, apply CQ to one part of the problem, but not the other. So I don't have to apply CQ here. I can do it just there. Now I could do it there and not here. Or I could change both of these quantifiers. I've got a lot of options. And all I'm currently interested in is setting up a hypothetical syllogism. So I'm going to take the existential and change it obviously to universal. There's not a tilde to the left, so I'm going to put one in. There is a tilde to the right, so I'm going to get rid of it. And there's my 1 CQ just to that quantifier, just to the consequent. Why? Well, now notice I've got that HS set up. That's a perfect match. There's the diagonal line. And so I get out the leftovers. From left to right, the antecedent of 3 will be the antecedent of my new line, line 4. HS, of course, always gets us a horseshoe. And now the consequent of line 2 will be the consequent of my line 4. So there we go. 2 and 3 HS. Now we've got the A and the C respectively together in the same line. And that's exactly what we want for our conclusion. Don't lose sight of the end goal. These problems are teleological in nature. Now, of course, there are differences here between my line 4 and the conclusion. Got the right variables, but they're out of order. C before A, and here we've got A before C. Notice we also have a tilde problem here. Notice, for that matter, we got a quantifier problem. That one is universal, that one's existential, this one's existential, that one's universal. This is, in many respects, completely backwards. So let's take it one step at a time. Let's start here with our ordering problem. C before A. And here we got the A before the C. So how can we reorder this? Com, remember, can only apply to dots or wedges. It need not center on the main operator for com, but it's dots and wedges only. And here we're not dealing with dots and wedges, we're dealing with a horseshoe. So how can we change the order? How can we flip that around for a horseshoe? And there's a Chapter 7 rule that allows us to do that. The main operator is the horseshoe. I know there are quantifiers in there, but it's a horseshoe statement, so we can apply a horseshoe rule. And the rule that allows us to do this is transposition, trans for short. And we're doing number one is flipping the order of the antecedent and the consequent. So the consequent becomes the antecedent. That existential, my handwriting's awful, isn't it? We've got the consequent becoming the antecedent, and the antecedent now becomes the consequent. But trans isn't as simple as com. It's not just as simple as reversing the antecedent and the consequent. Those are not logically equivalent statements. If A then B is not the same as if B then A. The second component of trans, and this is nothing new, this is all Chapter 7 stuff, is to negate. So we've got to add in tildes. If A then B is logically equivalent to if not B then not A. So reverse and negate. And now this looks like an awful mess. But at least we solved one problem. We've got the C before the A, the C before the A. So now we got it ordered. But we've got other problems. We got tilde issues. We got quantifier issues. That's existential. That's universal. That's universal. That's existential. So how can we change those quantifier problems? And hopefully at this point it's blatantly obvious. We need to do a 5 change of quantifier. And again, some texts call it quantifier exchange. We'll go with our text, of course, change of quantifier. So let's actually change them both. That's universal, that's existential, universal, existential. We need to change both of these. And I'm just going to do it in a single line. That's fine. So existential becomes universal. Look to the left and the right. Where there is a tilde, take one away. So there's a tilde there, let's get rid of it. There's a tilde to the right, let's get rid of that. And let's change this quantifier while we're at it. Universal becomes existential. There's a tilde to the left, so let's get rid of it. There's not a tilde to the right, so let's put it in. And we didn't change the main operator here. We changed both of the quantifiers, but it's still a horseshoe statement. So 5, change the quantifier, and we change both of them. Now we got to just write. Our line 6 mirrors the conclusion perfectly, and we're done. So that was not, by any stretch, a long problem, 6 lines, and we were done. Grand total of 4 steps. But this one was a little messier, a little trickier.